everybody. You're listening to the Comic Book Bears podcast. I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Steve Morey.
And I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
And we are your hairy, heavy homos that talk about comic books, but you don't have to be a hairy, heavy homo to listen in. So we are going to be talking about the new Batman film, which stars Robert Pattinson, directed by Matt Reeves and a bunch of other people in the cast. But we're also going to be talking about some Batman books, some Batman comic books and graphic novels. We've each chosen what we consider to be on the classic side and something that's of more recent vintage that we've been digging. I hope you'll be joining us for that through the entire night. We do have a tiny bit of news before we get going. Since we are talking about DC films, it turns out that they've had a bit of a roster change. Steve, if you want to take that away.
Well, first we do have a hello from Hassan. Nice hat, Bill. Yes, it is a very nice hat. But yeah, so very interestingly enough, if you did go to see the Batman at any time this weekend up till now, you would have noticed that right before the film, after the previews, and after Nicole Kidman comes in and does her little creepy AMC thing, if you went and saw it in an AMC theater, they had the DC film preview for 2022. Now, this has been available online for a couple weeks to watch for, if you're interested. It is very cool. It highlights all the films that were coming out for 2022: the Batman, Flash, Black Adam, and of course Aquaman 2. Unfortunately, just was it yesterday? DC announced that today, that basically 3 of those 4 films are now being shuffled. In fact, 2 of them are being shuffled into 2023. Black Adam is still going to be shown this year, but this year it's actually going to be coming out in October. And they're moving Shazam 2 up to December, making Shazam 2 a Christmas film, but also putting those 2 films really close together, so within 2 months. So I think that actually is good synergy, I think, between those 2, so you're not going, basically a full year between the 2 Shazam-related films. But it is disappointing for people who are looking forward to The Flash. It is no longer going to be this year. It'll be next year, I think in March, and then Aquaman 2 is going to be coming out much later next year.
Yep. And actually, the theatrical film I'm looking forward to the most, DC Comics Super Pets, is taking Black Adam's spot on July 15th.
So that got moved, was it 2 months out? Because it was going to be in May, and now it's July. Black Adam was July, now
that's
it's October.
The one I'm looking forward to the most.
Yeah. The Super Pets with everybody. That one, I was kind of sad that it moved, but, I guess they just had to reshuffle. And I also did just see that apparently having I think it was Aquaman moved to next year, it totally avoids the whole issue that they were going to be right against Avatar 2 or something like that. And I think that probably is a probably good idea. I don't know a lot of people who are excited for Avatar 2, but I know as soon as it hits, it's going to be people flocking to the theaters and seeing that.
I don't know a single person who is a franchise fan of that. I don't know.
Don't you need more movies to be a franchise yet?
Yeah, I don't know a single person. I'm sure they exist. I'm absolutely sure they exist.
Yeah.
And, we love you.
The only thing that can make Avatar really do as well as I think that they think it is if it is some kind of boundary-pushing effects movie, which was what the first Avatar was. The story in the first Avatar is not good. I'm sorry for anybody who loves it, but it's Pocahontas, so...
or Ferngully.
Ferngully, yeah. So,
yes, oh my God, you're right.
Yeah, but it really, it's the effects that push it forward. So that's really the only way that they can make it, I think, worth the push. But backing things up, October's a great month just in general. It's my birthday, so cool. I get to go see Black Adam around my birthday. That's awesome. But the first Shazam film, that was a Christmas movie as well, wasn't it?
Yeah. So, it was Christmas. Took place
in a Christmas movie, but it was released in February.
Okay,
yeah.
So,
but that was the themed season that it was.
For people who are listening who aren't viewing, Steve just killed me. Rest in peace, me, with the comparison to Ferngully. I'm gonna be cracking up about that all night because it's so true. Oh my God.
Just your
Gotta go
reaction
mute
was great.
again.
You had to put yourself on mute for that one. I was like, what is happening in that little box down there?
Oh, and he's still dying laughing. But dude, that smoke monster was legit terrifying.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That was, I mean, that, you know, and it was a message. It had a message. It was really, you know, it was powerful for 1997, 96.
And it gave us unobtainium. I still can't get over the fact that they called it unobtainium.
That was a placeholder name in the script that they were going to we'll workshop this, and they never did. Yeah. So just ended up in the final cut.
Yeah. So we have that shuffling around. Another bit of news that happened today was the actual release date of the 7,000 copy limited run of the JLA Avengers trade, and we saw some stuff on eBay that wasn't exactly, it was a bit disappointing to know that human beings can be like this.
Yeah,
it was not cool, man, as the saying goes. But is that unexpected?
And just no, it's not unexpected. And just for some background, it was a very limited run. So, and it hurts my heart to say this, but they wanted to get a print run while George was still with us.
Yeah.
That's the main motivation. There are legal factors, because of beyond a certain print run, there's other issues. There's a character in that DC and Marvel co-owned. Which I think a lot of people forget about access. So there's legal complications with that. But what I hope to see is down the road that there's another release. And it was one of those things where I wasn't even gonna bother trying to get a copy because first I have the floppies, and for me, if I was lucky enough to get a copy, that's taking away from somebody who may have never experienced this particular crossover. So, if it was a bigger run, I wouldn't have, I probably would have been a little more steadfast about trying to get a copy. So I don't know if you guys got any.
No.
I don't. I've read it, but I don't have. It's one of those things I would love to because I'm kind of a George Perez mark. He's my guy when it comes to that.
Yeah, I'll tell you, if I could turn back time, I definitely would have gotten that JLA Avengers hardcover. Which is effectively an absolute. I definitely would have gotten that because when I did peek into it about 2 years after it was released, the back matter. Oh, baby. I love that stuff.
Yeah. I love that they're doing that now. Like you said, they wanted to do it while obviously George was still around to do it. I'm loving kind of this thing that comics culture is doing, like the concept of giving people their flowers while they're still around to smell them. I love, like, instead of doing a memorial, they're letting George, it's the inevitable is inevitable. They're letting him know just how much he means to the world, and I adore that. There was another comics company that, a bunch of comics artists and fans just wrote this giant thing and signed their name to it and sent it to him. It was just so cool. I adore. I mean, I've got his book behind me. He's the reason I'm a comics fan. Straight up, his Avengers is the reason I read comics. So, we could turn this into a George Perez show.
and yeah, true. And as Hassan says, he has the absolute version. So it's if you were lucky enough to get the floppies when they were coming out, great. Or at any time, in the past couple of years, I'm sure they were something that you could get or obtain, not too difficult to get, but obviously,
even the single issues, they've gone up since the news of George. George's health issues have gone up, but they're still not. They're still obtainable. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And I don't want to also slam the bookstores and the comic shops that are raffling them off with the money going to the Hero Initiative. I'm not, I saw one group is giving half the money to Hero Initiative, another to local diabetes organizations.
Yeah.
Diabetes is something that George has suffered from his entire adult life. Another thing is, and a lot of people were surprised by this, there was some clarification on this. The money's not going to George's family. George is fine.
Yeah.
And, the word is, when real money was starting to move, that Marv and George have done very well from Deathstroke and Nightwing and Raven and Cyborg and Starfire royalties. That they've done very well in that capacity. So I don't want people, if they are involved in an eBay bid, where it is for completely charitable reasons. That's not what we're talking about.
Yeah, that's very different. Well, while we're striking a kind of somber tone, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't mention this, Bill, because you knew him definitely a lot better than I did. But this past week, if you're into comics, if you're into podcasting, if you're into this kind of world, there's a good chance that you know who Jim Dietz is and was. He frequented multiple shows on the Taylor Network, was part of the old school Comic Geek Speak forum, which is what brought, I think that was kind of the mothership that brought a lot of these different groups together. Jim Dietz passed away of I think from what it sounds like, a very sudden heart attack, leaving behind a wonderful wife and kids. And I never had the opportunity to meet him personally. We communicated on a couple of forums every once in a while, the EOC boards, stuff like that. Always was very polite, very knowledgeable, just loved pop culture and stuff. And, he was a stalwart in our little, in what seems to be a large community, but it's a very small community at the same time. So I think we have to mention that and just send our condolences out and, love to his friends and family. And it's heartbreaking. Even if I never met him personally, it's still hard to swallow.
Yeah. The last lengthy IM conversation I had with Jim was Jim had an association with Action Lab, and Action Lab very recently has been in the news about a particular class action suit with its creators against the personnel that run the company. And as somebody who has so much in-depth knowledge and was entrenched in a lot of the controversies surrounding that, I thought a reply that he gave was so classy, because I think when you are mad, you do want to name names sometimes, especially when friends of yours have been wronged. And
right,
and it was just such a classy response, and it was one of those things like I gotta write him, it's how we all should act in circumstances like that. I only met him once in person, but there was always an online correspondence, and a conversation with Jim would start with comic books, and then it would go into tangential airspace, and then somehow land right back where it started. And that's what I'll remember. And, again, I also want to repeat what Caleb said and extend, my deepest condolences to his wife and kids and family and friends.
I was going to say, and friends, because this is this connection. It's one of those things like I've never been in the same room with the two of you, right? But we talk every day. And it's one of the, it's a built family in a sense. And some really strong bonds and friendships that of people who use the internet the right way. So, just again, heart goes out to all the folks.
Yeah.
So, but let's pick it up a little bit. Bill, did you go some shopping this week?
Yeah, I did. Again, it hasn't been with the 2-week period that we've had. It hasn't been a time where I've really gone out too much.
Yeah.
But interestingly, any of my gets were Batman related. You can see a big one right behind me, and I'll grab it down. I decorated, just so that there was a little Batman behind that's
a motif.
This is an
we love a motif.
Yeah. So unfortunately, the shine is going to get the better of this in showing this off. But this is the Batman Lieutenant Gordon set with the Gotham City police car from Spin Master.
Nice.
So, so that's a nice set. Haven't opened it, and I don't know if I ever will, but that's the way it is with collecting toys. And I also completed my 3 3/4 collection of the individually released action figures with the wingsuit Batman. You can see that there. So those were my gets this week. And then our friend and neighbor Greg Trosco picked this up for me as a gift. I don't know what motivated him, but I guess if I ever go to Aspen or Antarctica, I now have a set of Sherpa-lined Batman socks. So,
Well,
so
those will keep your toes quite toasty.
yeah. So thank you very much, Greg. That was a nice little gift to receive at the doorstep. So
I'm jealous. Those look warm.
yeah, but that's the thing is like with socks, I wear like those little buoy socks. There's just, and some of it's there's edema going on, but some of it is the socks. Thank you, John Westhoff. But I like wear like they're barely socks.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No,
Yeah.
during the winter, my feet get freezing. I have shitty circulation, so my feet just get ice
Yeah.
cold. So I've got like the big fluffy socks that I just
Okay,
wear around.
yeah,
my-
Fluffy socks.
I'm not wired that way. So.
Well, Steve, did you have anything you wanted to? Are you?
No, you know me. I never go anywhere or do anything. I'm just tied to this chair. I never leave.
I hope as we get back to quotes around it normal. I hope you change that, Steve. I don't want to think of you as always sequestered at home.
We're just gonna.
Hey, we've got a
bothered.
farmlet here. We
Yeah.
have too many animals to wrangle. I guess.
See, that's what you need to do. Bring in a different animal for show and tell every time. So, like a lot of like you guys and like a lot of folks, I headed off to my local theater, my movie watching establishment, and watched a little movie this week. And I picked up this little keychain that I wanted to show off. Little Oswald Cobblepot, little cutie guy, the cutest penguin has ever been. So that was cool.
And that was
this
at the
is not-
theater?
Dude, yeah, they had those at the theater, right at the concession stand. They had all these little single packs, and actually, I kind of maybe going to watch it again sometime this weekend because there's another podcast that we want to talk about it on. So I want to get like fresh in my mind. So, but I may pick up another one and see if I can get a different keychain.
Cool.
Secondly, this is not a geek get as much as a geek gift. I think you all know that I have a deep, serious, and probably I should talk about it with my therapist love for the Scarlet Witch. So I got this in from my buddy Arnie, my friend and yours. He sent me that because he is a parishioner of all things cool and action figure-y. Also Spider-Man, but he's just a great dude. He knows I love her, and I'm not one to buy things like that for myself. So he just took upon himself to do it.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate it because it's
Caleb,
beautiful.
in our particular circle, I think all of us either have action figures from Arnie or from Chris Revikamp.
Or Flippa.
It just seems
Yeah.
that they're always on the prowl for stuff.
Yep.
And John Westhoff, who I actually had the first thing of Migos. The
Nice.
first wave of the 8-inch Migos was thanks to John and his wife. So
Just
And
again,
as John's saying here, Arnie is a saint, so
he
make sure
really
that's-
saint and sometimes a sinner. But no, dude, it's one of those things, like you said, that circle of friends that we have. And then last but not least, a little hardcover book action picked up today, the Incredible Hulk Omnibus Volume 1, because I only have it in like a few forms, and the Masterworks, but I didn't have it in this one, so now I do, and it's pretty, and I like it.
what does the omnibus go to? Is it to the end of Tales of Astonish?
That's a good question. This is still in the cellophane, and I have not opened it yet. So give me.
No, don't do that. They usually say it on the
don't
back.
do it. Never open it.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that.
It goes. It looks like it goes through Hulk 102. So yeah, it's the end of Tales
Okay.
of Sonic. So it's got
Astonish,
the
yeah.
first.
Yeah.
It's got the first 6 Hulk issues, and then it changes to Tales to Astonish, and then runs through most of that. Obviously, not all of that, but.
No. Tales to Astonish became the Hulk with 102.
Yeah, 102.
Yeah.
101 or 102.
Yeah. I think. I'm trying to think.
It started and went back.
Tales of Suspense was definitely 100 with Captain America.
Mhm.
That was definitely. I'm not sure. I thought Hulk.
Yeah,
was
it is. It's 102. Yeah, that's because
Cool.
the earliest I have as far as Incredible Hulk is I have a Incredible Hulk 107.
Mhm.
So that's the earliest I have in my collection. But I have a ton of Tales to Astonish too. So it goes back before that. But I think the early 30s is the earliest Tales to Astonish I have. So
Mhm.
as far as like single issues. So I'm working on it.
I'm so old. There was a store in an antique mall growing up, and they had the first 6 issues of the run, of the original run, and the issue number 1 was $25, and 2 through 6 were 16 each.
I will build a time machine today.
And I was like,
well, if you're going to build a time machine, you might as well go back to the newsstand.
oh my god! It's like I bet I could save. Yeah. So the first comic that I saved to get was Brave and the Bold number 28, the first appearance of the Justice League, and that would have been in 1979, and I paid $18 for that. $18 for that.
Jesus.
But to get that 18, you have to plug in and see what the inflation rate.
Right.
Believe me, I mowed a lot of lawns for that. Believe
I
me.
bet.
Yeah.
I think I also may have my priorities messed up. I mean, it's like yeah, I want to build a time machine and go get this comic. Do I want to go kill Hitler? Nah. Comics. Let me just go grab comics off the shelf.
You know what? The killing Hitler and preventing the Spanish flu and all that stuff. I do that. They'll be like the earliest on the checklist. Right. Get this over with so we can get to the fun stuff. Yeah, that's probably what I would do.
Looks like it is $69.71 today.
Well, $70 for yeah, that's
still pretty good.
Still size, but it's still still a lot. But another thing that will drive you nuts is even looking at things since you guys have been alive with what some of the prices are in the old overstreets for some books. It'll make it nuts.
Yeah.
Make it nuts.
Why did I miss that when I was going to the store in 1991? Like, why didn't I pick up that issue? Why did I do that?
Even in 2004, I remember there was a dollar bin, and there had to have been 20 copies of New Mutants number 98.
Mm-hmm.
There had to have been 20 copies of that.
Our buddy Craig got a New Mutants 98 out of like a dollar bin one time.
Yeah.
It's frustrating.
My biggest dollar bin score was Batman Adventures. What was 11 or 12, which is Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my biggest dollar bin score. I was like, mine.
They don't know what they have.
No, they don't. Some people don't know what they have. Yeah.
Those suckers.
All right. So we're going to talk about Batman. The Batman.
The Batman.
So, Steve, we've always relied upon you for encapsulating the plots of the films. So why don't you start off with that? And also tell us some of the cast and crew if you have that information handy.
Absolutely. So, this little movie that has been anticipated for quite some time, it had a lot of hype and especially a lot of controversy due to some of the casting choices. Some of them were reasonable concerns, and some of them were just...
Why were there reasonable concerns? I don't know.
I would say, and we'll get to that. I think we'll come back and talk about that. But let's just kind of do the overview first.
Saying, so was this reasonable concerns from people who've seen the Twilight films and nothing else that the guy's done?
Yes.
Okay, that's the end of story. Okay.
Yeah. So, The Batman, directed by Matt Reeves, starred Zoë Kravitz as Selina Kyle, Jeffrey Wright as Lieutenant Gordon, Paul Dano as the big villain, the Riddler, and, of course, Robert Pattinson as Bruce Wayne and the Batman. It also featured not so much minor actors, but somewhat minor parts. You had Colin Farrell, completely unrecognizable as the Penguin, a just beautiful makeup job there. John Turturro as Carmine Falcone, and Andy Serkis as Alfred, with a few other cameos here and there, Peter Sarsgaard, etc., the Carver twins. So essentially, it's set in what would essentially be year 2. The Batman has set the tone in Gotham and made his mark in the criminals' minds, providing a boogeyman, although not necessarily reducing the crime noticeably. And in fact, the most notable anti-crime action in recent memory in the city was the dismantling of the Maroni drug and crime syndicate. That was led by the mayor, the DA, and other higher-ups within the Gotham PD. However, the players responsible for that bust are quickly becoming the victims of the new costumed criminal and mass murderer, the Riddler, who is essentially dispatching each of these dominant elite figures in Gotham society in more subsequently gory fashions, and always with a message to the Batman, containing clues to the next murder, as well as to the big plan that is seemingly tied to this initiative, the Renewal Project in Gotham, started 20 years prior by Thomas Wayne himself before he was murdered. So, connected to this disappearance of a club girl at the Penguin's establishment brings in Selina Kyle, who starts working with the Bat to look for her friend, and as well, we see some connection to Falcone, the remaining crime boss after Maroni was removed from the board, and of course, Batman himself races to find the identity of the Riddler and solve the big puzzle, even as it looks like he is much more, or just as much, as a target as Gotham's other elites. So, very interesting, setup to what's going to be happening in this film. And there's a lot more of an emphasis here on detective work and the riddles and the importance of the clues and following the clues and understanding the secrets that are coming up here. But it's... it is definitely a very different Batman movie than what we've seen previously. But let's go to it. What did you guys think? What did you guys think about it?
Okay. I come out on the positive side. Some of the things I really liked about it, I loved more than any other film that concept of Gotham as a character. You felt that more in this one by leaps and bounds. I'm also glad that you mentioned detective, because the past Batman films we've had could have been named, and have been named Batman or The Dark Knight. This was Detective Comics. Mm-hmm. This was Detective Comics on film. Since Gotham City, since 1977, has been set in New Jersey, I love that you had deliciously authentic North Jersey accents throughout the film. That was one of my favorite things about it. Though in the Atlas, it's actually in the South, but it was a very nice touch. I thought, I had notes here, but the gentleman who did the cinematography for Dune, who did the cinematography for this, what's his name? Peter Craig? Is that his name? No, he was the co-writer. I'll get to it. Greg Fraser. Greg Fraser. I thought he pulled off something miraculous in that the Gotham that we saw there was dark but not dead. It was very much there was very much a kinetic energy to how Gotham happens and what goes on. I love that. We talked about this on the show before, where David Tobey made a point of saying, that in the marketing for this film, Selina Kyle is known as Selina Kyle and not Catwoman. We didn't have Catwoman in this film. We had Selina Kyle. I love that she had different motivations. Some people have been bitching about the Falcone thing that actually does come from the comic books. That is part of her origin story in the tail end of the New 52 version of the character, if people are unaware. So that didn't come out of nowhere. And I just love, more than anything, she is his equal in this film. I think in the movie versions that we've seen in the past, that certainly wasn't the case. Some of that is that he's still new at this game. Like you said, it's year 2, but they had a really cool dynamic as a potential couple, uh, that happened in the film, and that's one return visit I would love to see. I would love to see what happens to these characters after, um, what goes down,
Yeah.
if they ever do get reunited. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I also, with some of my observations, I was on a slightly negative side. I know we've had different opinions about, when we were talking on the show before, about his depiction of Bruce Wayne.
Hmm.
There wasn't very much of it. There wasn't very much of Alfred. I would be
Mm-hmm.
interested to see, and again, it's a joke. You can't have a 6-hour film. That I would be interested to see what did end up on the cutting room floor, but it did seem that Bruce Wayne was fairly undefined. And from my standpoint, for somebody who's been reading Batman stories since 1973, um, Bruce Wayne is one of the most interesting facets of the Batman character. And, he is the Batman. That's who he is. Bruce Wayne is the mask.
Mm-hmm.
Superman and Clark, it's the reverse. And I I was fine with it because it mostly was the Batman. Um, since that aspect of the character's development was very fine tuned. Um, Probably the most kick-ass Batmobile we've ever had because it was so believable.
Yeah.
And just as a negative, another negative that I want to throw, there's no reason this movie should have been 3 hours long. They could have told this
Mm.
story in 2 hours and change. 2 hours and 10 minutes. They could have told the exact same story, but it's a very unique vision. Um, I always think of Reader's Digest versions of because there are influences from films like Seven and Zodiac,
Mm-hmm.
and that makes perfect sense because these are who Batman's Rogues Gallery are at their heart. They're serial killers,
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
you got the sense of that far more in this than you've ever seen before. There were some points that I thought could have been more finely tuned, but I'm glad it exists. Because this is one type of Batman film that I think we needed.
Mm-hmm.
At some point. This is about as dark I think as it could get without an R rating. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think this is about as dark as they should bring Batman, at least
Yeah.
from a film standpoint, from a cinematic standpoint.
Well, and they did a really good job of brightening it up at the end in
Mhm.
some really great ways. So, number one, for those of you who are sitting at home, like following Bill when you talk about these things sucks because he's Bill. So it's really hard. So I think instead of trying to follow it, I think we'll just carry on the conversation by saying what I felt and like kind of responding to some of the things he says. Because I agree with most of them, and just my 30,000 foot view by and large, I really, really, really enjoyed the film. It's not even that I came down on the positive side. I I found myself really energized by the film and the thoughts that it made me think. And for those of you who know me, you can give me, and this is not even necessarily a good way to think about things, right? But you can give me a movie that is arguably a bad movie, and as long as it makes me think interesting thoughts and like have these like brainwave things happen, then I'll enjoy it. Case in point, I watched Wonder Woman 89 a dozen times because of all the stuff that goes into it, that you're dealing with trickle down economics and the salvation, the prosperity doctrine and all of that stuff that kind of, the Dale Carnegie of it all that kind of goes into it. But this movie, like, because it was so literary in nature, it really did have my wheels turning and thinking about it. And I think part of that is because the movie really wears its influences on its sleeves. And I really, really, really love that. Like Bill, it's interesting, Bill said Zodiac 7. I literally wrote down the Dave Fincher of it all. It is so strongly rooted in that. There's so much of him in there, and it's perfect. It is a perfect homage to that style of film, and I thought that was really fun. You can also see what I really enjoyed about it. I'm a fan of not just detective comics, but detective fiction as a genre. And this is really, it is part and parcel of a detective noir film, even down to the cadence of the dialogue. Like, when we were talking, my husband and I were talking after we saw it, and there was some, he was like, some of the way that they said things and some of the conversational flow was weird. And I said, oh no, that's totally because they're channeling Raymond Chandler, right? Like they're channeling Humphrey Bogart in the way that they spoke in those movies, those detective films. And that was purposefully done. It was an artistic take on it. And I thought that was really interesting for me as a person who likes that crime noir style of film. It really drove home the point of of the tone that they were trying to set. And the same thing when they're talking about, I thought they did a really good job with using Falcone. Number one, I love that we actually saw like these gangsters were more than just like passing blips. They were integral to the story. But the fact that Falcone is in this so much, like that is in a way a callback to the Maltese Falcon, right? So it takes this and it kind of brings it full circle. I thought that was relatively ingenious, and simple, right? Like it's one of those things, like of course it works, but it just was so kind of purposefully executed. Like you said, the best, one of the best Batmobiles that we have, because it's so rooted in realism. I thought that they did a really good job with not only the look to it, but the cinematography, giving it this kind of grindhouse film feel. Whether you like his movies or not, I think there was some Rodriguez all up in the way that this was kind of functioned and formulated. And so I really thought that was great. And then, just getting into the Batman lore and in the look and the design of the suits and stuff, there was some Lee Bermejo in there that I was like really excited about seeing. I thought that was great. And then there was just like, a little glimmer of Paul Dini in some of his stories, just here and there, part of which in the detective fiction of it all, but just in the way that he related Batman to a mass audience. I thought that he took some of the Paul Dini formula and roped it in and made it work.
Yeah. One creator, if I could just sneak in one creator who hasn't done a lot of Batman, but the Batman he's done has been interesting, that I thought I definitely saw traces of this, is Dan Brereton.
Mm-hmm.
I
can
thought
see that.
there absolutely was, particularly in the vehicle and particularly in the nightclub. I mean, that looked like a Dan Brereton nightclub. Some of the action takes place. So he's not somebody who's normally associated with Batman and his, and his painterly style. But if you do, he has done, particularly in Legends of the Dark Knight, both the original series and this one, there are stories that he was part of. I did feel that maybe they took a bit of reference from him too.
Well, and just while we're talking about references, and it could just be recency bias considering the characters, but I thought that there were some of the DNA and mechanics of Tom King's Batman, and at least the relationship of Selena Kyle in there.
In the relationship, the other stuff I wouldn't say was Tom Kingish, but I would absolutely say that the and I can't even say Bruce. I have to say the Batman and Selena relationship. There was absolutely some connective tissue.
More so, like I saw more of Tom King's Batman in that relationship than I did Snyder. I didn't see a lot of Snyder in this, which I was actually expecting, because Snyder, in the New 52 stuff, Snyder wrote some of that. Like he wrote some of that early year Batman, Year Zero and stuff, and I thought there would be a little bit there, but not even in his depiction of the Riddler. I didn't see any of that. Bill, one thing, and you said we talked about this behind the show, I'd kind of like to get into it if we can, and talk about like the depiction of Alfred and Bruce, and Steve, jump in here and cut me off too. But you guys are right. Like there wasn't a lot of Bruce Wayne in this film. And when you saw him, he was mopey and, just emo kind of Bruce Wayne, but you saw even less of Alfred. And they had a strange relationship dynamic in this than I think some people may be used to, especially if they're only used to the Bruce and Alfred that you've got from cinema. Because this was more of, like you said, this is year two. And we don't know where we don't know where Bruce has been. Like you didn't really get a taste or feel for like where he went off in his early formative, young adult life. So we don't know where he went to kind of get the skills or what he's been through, but I think that they might have made a purposeful, and I could be wrong. I could be reading into this, and it could just be me making excuses and connecting dots that for better or worse, shouldn't be connected. But I think that the filmmakers might have been a little afraid that to show too much of Bruce and Alfred's relationship in this and have it be strained would be a little weird for the mass audience. Like, they wouldn't understand that this is not the Bruce and Alfred who have the father-son relationship that maybe we're used to, and that this is a Bruce who isn't like you said, the Bruce is the mask. He's not comfortable in his own skin. He doesn't know how to be Bruce Wayne, and he kind of feels like he's on his heels, like a boxer who's been backed up into a corner when he doesn't have his mask on. And he doesn't know how to assert himself with or around Alfred, because they haven't really established that relationship. The seeds of it are there, but he's acting more like an angsty teenager, like that's dealing with a stepdad, like you're not my real dad kind of thing. And it's going to take them some time to develop that relationship, but you do see it. Like, you see the construction of that relationship happening, and you see them have that kind of culmination point where he's like, should have never left you. You're basically my dad. Like, and I love you, and I'd be broken if anything happened to you. So you see that. But I thought it was interesting that they showed that they hadn't built that there. I thought that gave some characterization and some, a look forward to what could come in the future, and to those lessons that Bruce has to learn about people. And it really does, in its own sense, set up the mechanics for him being able to open up to something like, say, I don't know, maybe a partner, be that a partner in love, with Selina, or a partner in fighting crime like Robin, because he's doing everything himself and he's got himself shut off. And so, like, it could be this relationship with Alfred, like allowing him to open up to this other human being, this father figure that is teaching him to not be so closed and just this creature of vengeance. You know what I mean?
So I agree with a good chunk of what you're saying there. I think that this is definitely in that formative relationship, or that part of the relationship between Bruce and Alfred, where Alfred is wanting to take more of an active role in mentoring him, whereas Bruce is still in that, you took care of me after my parents died, but I'm a big boy now, and I got my things that I want to do, and right now I don't see you as part of that. And partway through the movie, not too much in this way of spoilers, Bruce kind of has a wake-up moment about how important Alfred actually is to him, and that sort of, will lead into that better relationship. But contrary to both of you, where you're saying, like, Bruce is the mask, Batman's the real one, I don't think we're there yet with this Bruce Wayne yet. I think this Bruce Wayne is still trying to understand exactly who he is in relation to the Batman. He is definitely more a spirit of vengeance than he's either a Batman or Bruce Wayne. I think he's still struggling with the trauma, and that's, of course, that's who Bruce Wayne is. That's who the Batman is a product of trauma. But I don't think that he's really solidified who the Batman is yet. He's still getting there. He's got the symbol, he's got the look, he's getting, the respect from the police. At least he's got Lieutenant Gordon in his corner there. But I think that, the city is starting to understand his importance. But I think right now he's still in that transitional period himself on, I'm still a petulant heir to the vast Wayne Enterprises fortune, and I don't want to do it, and it's so much work, and I'd rather be like my emo sad boy fighting crime, because this is what I want to do. This is who I want to be. I want to be the Batman. I want to be the symbol of vengeance. I want to strike fear in the hearts of criminals. I want to, be this savior for the city by working through my trauma. And he's hasn't really formed a true mature Batman yet. He's still too much Bruce Wayne. Angry, sad, hurt, untrusting, and just generally, incompatible with society around him. I think he's still in the Bruce Wayne mode. And yes, he's eventually going to convert that to Batman, and Batman will be who he is, and Bruce Wayne who he puts on when he needs to do something with the board of the company, or attend a charity event, or give himself an alibi of some sort. But he's not there yet, and I think a lot of that, there's still so much of that fear that he's still too much Bruce, and that works into, I think, a really pivotal scene towards the climax of this film between him and the Riddler, with Bruce Wayne being the thing that's striking fear in the heart of Batman. That he's still too much Bruce, that there's too much of him that's out there, that's visible, that's, a liability. That is a liability, exactly. That's his weakness. His weakness is that he's still too much Bruce Wayne. But, again, it's still early. I might be really reading into it, because there's so much that was cut from this film. You don't get enough Bruce Wayne, as Bruce Wayne. You don't get enough Bruce Wayne and Alfred talking and connecting and understanding and speaking to each other. That, maybe it's not. Maybe that wasn't the intention. Maybe it's like, he's just Batman, and, we're going to throw in some Bruce Wayne stuff to show that he does actually take the costume off every once in a while to take a shower. But I still think, they portrayed that aspect of Batman pretty well that we don't see. We're not the hotshot coming back from all this training trying to, save the city that you would in a year one Batman, and also not the mature Batman that we've seen in some of the later sequels, Batman Forever, Batman Robin, or even the later Christopher Nolan ones, where he's an established figure on the streets of Gotham. And of course, definitely not the Zack Snyder one.
Yeah, I just wanted to interject here that there was one of the aspects of the film that I really did like is they didn't spend time on stuff that we've seen before. Yes. And they didn't spend time on stuff that with the end result is what matters and the journey isn't. We know that he works with the police. That's all we need to know. Yep. And they perfectly they perfectly showed how that works, how there is a bat signal, what that means, that there are cops that aren't cool with this for various different motivations, and that just comes out in the dialogue, and there's nothing that they need to spend 20-30 minutes of bandwidth on. I really like that aspect of the economy of the storytelling.
It adds to the mystique of Gotham.
Yeah. Well, and that's the
also,
thing. I think, Bill, you said it. Yeah. Gotham is just like Sex in the City or any kind of like New York romance. Gotham is another character in this movie, but it's the kind of character that you're like, oh, damn, he's here. Ugh. Yeah. Because Gotham it's gritty, it's gross, it's dark, it's always wet. It's so wet. It's so wet. So wet.
This is something that has been an element of the very recent Batman comics that is there, not necessarily overt, but and in some ways the subversion of this is what makes it effective, is that they show that Batman in a sense creates some of the villains. That his very presence and also one of the coolest moments of how he deals in fear, when you have that first gang on the subway platform that are beating that guy up, and Batman does his thing, that entire gang gets their ass kicked, and the guy who was getting mugged is terrified of Batman.
Runs away.
Oh,
yeah, it's terrified.
You know what?
That whole section was really well done.
That was perfect. That was so perfect. That tells you like what that city is like and why people react to certain things that way. One thing that I thought where the film failed was with the Riddler. Not so much Paul Dano's performance, which I thought was spot on. I thought he was great. But you spend so much time through even beyond the first two halves of the film of the Riddler attacking the patriarchy, and then he feels no qualms about the common man being part of his destruction. I thought that was a little weird and could have been better explained.
Yeah, not only that,
even by like one or two lines of dialogue that these were acceptable losses or something. It didn't it rang weird with me.
well,
So
not only
I don't
that,
know how
but
you felt there.
like you said, he's attacking the patriarchy in the first part of the film, and by the end of the film, he's roped in these arguably alt-right, like super misogynist internet gun guys to be his henchmen, and I thought that was a little weird. Going back to the one scene that you were talking about though in the beginning of the film, just real quick, because that's actually one of my favorite scenes in the movie because it does two things really well. Like the guys have like this face paint on, again, a really simple visual cue to other thing like former Batman films, be they good Batman films or some of the not so great Batman films, like Batman Forever or Batman and Robin, where they open up and they have this like day glow gangster like umpa guys. I don't know what you call them, but like it threw back to that. But not only that,
They're the Fern Gully gang.
Yeah, it really is. It's like techno acid. This is where Daft Punk came from. Those were Daft Punk's minions. But it really establishes in like one line that Gotham, the denizens of Gotham, don't know what to make of Batman yet, and they don't know what he is, because like you see them talking about the Batman, you hear the news crews talk about, which also again Frank Miller nod with having the news crews doing what they're doing at the beginning of the movie. I thought that was great, but they're talking about the Batman, right? And how he's fighting crime and he's doing all these things in the city and it's big shit news and everything. And then you have these criminals, these street criminals who are on the lookout for something, on the lookout for Batman. They don't know what Batman is. And then they see this human dude kind of walk out who, by the way, and we spoke about this earlier, Pattinson looks more like a real human head with the mask on than he does with the mask off, because he has such a, like, I think what Steve called it is a
concave face.
Yeah, he has like a semi-concave face. So the mask actually fleshes out his face more, but that's beside the point. But when he steps out, like the people don't think he can be Batman, because they've convinced themselves, assumedly, that Batman is some type of like a Dave Keane-esque, like Wraith-like figure. And so when it's just a man that steps out, he's like, "Who the fuck are you?" Like, and then proceeds to get broken, for lack of any better way to put it. But I love how effective that was of saying, hey, these people do not know who or what Batman is as a concept, much less as just a vigilante. I thought that was really, really well done.
Do you like
I think
Bruce
that
Wayne emo hair?
Yes. But I mean that's why, for me that feels more like he's still, not only is the city kind of trying to figure out, like, okay, well, what is the Batman and what does that mean? But I also think that he's still feeling that kind of, there's that little bit of I think apprehension on his side, where it's like, you guys aren't freaking out yet? Like, you guys should be running away. Don't you know I'm the Batman? Not really. I mean, they're afraid of the concept. They're afraid of, like, the urban legend of the Batman. But when he actually shows up and they're like, we can take him, even though they don't, like, they get their asses kicked. Like, the fact that they thought that they could is kind of like, this is still really early on in his journey. He hasn't gotten to that point yet.
And you also saw, they got a few jabs in. He
got punched in the face a couple times.
That was also, with some of the depictions that we've had, particularly in the comic books, of somebody who was almost superhuman, to have that depicted, I thought was great. And
well, there's the one thing that's really funny, and that is the Batwing suit. So the Batwing suit, which is basically there's one point where he has to get away very quickly from the top of a building, and he inflates the bat suit. It does not go the way that he planned. It does not make him look great and cool. It actually ends up basically he's hits the ground not very gracefully and is like, shit. You can see it in his head. He's probably like, I'm never doing this shit again. Like, but he's still at that point where, he's got some of the tools, some of the toys, but maybe hasn't worked out all the kinks.
It's not fully formed, and that's some of the enjoyment of the film. Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm actually curious about that. So I stepped into my local comic book shop today for a second to pick up my weekly books, and we're having a conversation about this. And one of the people that were there, one of their kind of complaints was that the movie, the complaint wasn't that the movie was too realistic. The complaint was that, okay, you set up this realism in the film, and I adopted into that. Like I bought it, and that kind of pushed away some of my suspension of disbelief because of you were like rooting me in kind of real world physics. And then Batman takes like 70 bullets to the chest and head, and then can do all this stuff and doesn't get hurt. So it was like you asked me not to suspend my belief to root this in realism, but then you do all this other stuff, and I had to suspend my belief. Now I didn't have a problem with that, and my explanation with him was, I automatically go into this with some suspension of disbelief because it's Batman. Like this is at the end of the day, this is a dude putting on an outfit and going and punching things into crime. But I just like, how did you guys feel? Like, what was your reaction to that?
Oh, I thought that was fine because you did have moments he's knocked out at one point.
Yeah. And they don't take his mask off.
There's audio problem. What about there's audio problems when he's been too close to an explosion, and that that has an effect on him. He clearly needs to go to bed at the end of the film for a few hours because he must be really, really tired. So I never felt that it was knowing if we didn't live in a world with Kevlar and some of the other tools that people have at their disposal now, I would say but again, the stuff that he said took him out, it didn't take me out because I did see it as viable in one form or another.
Now, can we talk about before we've talked about Bruce and the Bat a lot, but what about the cat? I mean, Zoë Kravitz, I think, she was fascinating as Selina Kyle in this.
And I
just could not take my eyes off of her.
It was Selina Kyle without being Catwoman. It was it's a different motivation. It's a different rationale behind what she does.
But same skill set.
But is it? I don't know if it's so much of a different rationale.
It's part of hers, but I don't see this Selina Kyle becoming known for being a jewel thief above everything.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see that aspect of her. The stuff of worrying about the strays and that stuff, absolutely. But something that has been the thief aspect of her, which has been at the forefront of most of the depictions of the character in the past, was not there, and I welcome that. I don't mind seeing a Selina that's a little different.
Well, so I don't think she was completely different, though. I mean,
I'm not completely, but that's why I said a little.
She was casing out. This version of Selina is not somebody that would steal from someone who doesn't deserve it, right? Like, this isn't the Selina that will bump into somebody and steal like somebody's like last $5, which we've seen before. But this version of Selina is more like a Robin Hood-esque type figure, right? Like, she will steal from criminals. Like, she will, she's going to take from people who deserve it, quote unquote deserve it. I'm using air quotes for the folks at home, but. Yeah. So it's not complete. Like, she's still a thief, and she still has the same skill set, possibly developed for those same reasons. It just doesn't really get into that. But I do love that how it kind of walks you through, like how she got her, her becoming who she is. I thought that was phenomenal, and legitimately feline, characterization. I thought it was awesome.
Well, and also there is a really great sequence in there, again, not to spoil too much for people who haven't seen it, where she is working with the Batman in getting him more information by basically going undercover as herself, in the Penguins Club, and just her interactions, the way she looks. I mean, Zoë Kravitz had this version of Selina down. I mean, this is just an amazing depiction of it. You felt everything, and you understood what she was doing and experiencing there so well. I just kind of believed. I believed the character a lot. I believed in that character, which was great.
This is more Joelle Jones's Catwoman, I think.
Yeah,
and just be recency bias again, but I felt like it was that. But she's more of a spy in this, and I thought that was just. the way that she boiled down, and again, I think this is true for a lot of the characters. They just boiled them down to their bare essence, and they gave us a version of those, some of which we haven't seen before, but some of it, we've gotten from the video games. They pull little things because there's such a library of text, be it in film or in audio or in whatever to pull from, that they were able to give us things that were comfortable and familiar, but still completely different. And that's good. That's great. Cause and there are people who say, oh, this is not my version of this character. Well, then go read your version of the character. It's still there. Like, go pull it out of your boxes or off your shelf, or go pop in your VHS, cause it's still there. Like you can't just, you can't let these things get stale. And so I really like that. And they did the same thing with Penguin, which I thought was really interesting, if nothing else. And we haven't really spoke about Penguin a whole lot on this. He kind of, for me, blew me away in this film. He was like, those scenes were some of my favorite scenes with him, like just grasping at power and like dreaming of clout, and Tweedledee and Tweedledum were just amazing.
Hey, I've always had crushes on the Carver twins. I think Max and Charlie are awesome, and I can't remember which one is family, but one of them is. You can catch him in the remake of The Boys of the Band, and he was amazing. But I think the Penguin was really very interesting. I don't think he had as much screen time as maybe the posters and the lead up and the trailers would have led you to believe. That he doesn't have the merchandising, like he doesn't have as big a part. And obviously, plot wise, yes, he's a linchpin character, but at the same time he doesn't really have the on-screen presence. But Colin Farrell did a great job. You can't tell it's Colin Farrell, so the makeup artists and the prosthetic artists, they did an amazing job with that. And also, one of the most nerve-wracking car chases I've seen in years, because I have a thing against driving at night and driving in the rain, and this had both of them. It was
man.
terror.
I can't stand that,
and excitement. It was wild, and I feel so bad for everybody on that bridge.
And Steve, they have announced a Penguin series for HBO Max, so
I saw that.
Maybe you'll get what you need.
Maybe and maybe Benedict Cumberbatch will narrate as well, so we can hear him say "Penguin" again. Should be fun.
Okay, all right. So the Batman. The last thing I will say, if they give Matt Reeves the keys to the kingdom to tell the Court of Owls story, I will be very much there for that. I think he would do a fantastic job. And one thing I also think would be novel is using the Court of Owls as a method of introducing Dick Grayson to the narrative.
Yeah.
I think that would work spectacularly. So
which is what I want.
And again, and just to wrap this up, for me saying, with almost non-committal language, like I come out on the positive end, I'm going to see this movie a few times, believe me. It might wait till home video. I've been known to buy home video of DC products. It's not unheard of. Yeah. So I imagine I'm going to be seeing this movie again and again and again. And definitely certain sequences are going to get a lot of play again and again and again. So
I agree. I enjoy it. I enjoyed it. I didn't think it was the best depiction of Batman I've ever seen. Do I think it's the best DC film that I've seen in a while? I really liked it. I think it is definitely up there in the thought that went into this film and the style that was attempted and in many cases succeeded. In being presented very differently than what's been presented before. A different way of looking at a gritty, realistic Batman in a way that's very different from Christopher Nolan's attempt to show a gritty, realistic Batman that stopped being realistic by the middle of the first movie. So,
and then
all right, go ahead.
I greatly enjoyed it, and I'll just be real quick. I really, really, really enjoyed it, and now I don't need to. I'll see it again, but I don't need more of this. I would love them to move on. I want Dick Grayson. I want to see some of these other DC characters. Give me that. It's like let Batman take a nap. that's my.
He needs
okay.
it.
All right.
for this movie.
Well, the name of the show is the Comic Book Bears Podcast, so we're going to pay some attention to the first two words there. And we're going to be talking about some Batman comics of the past and relatively recent present. Did I get the parlance on that right? I don't care. So the relatively recent present.
Contemporary, if
yeah.
you will.
Oop,
That were look at that.
yeah, already.
And one thing that was interesting, I know some of our choices. The extended Bat family is a major factor in some of the books that we've chosen. One, a little, I still think there could have been a Batman book that one of us could have chosen that was, quintessentially Batman. But let's go around the horn. What do you want to do first, classic or current? Probably should do classic first, right?
Classic, yeah.
All right, so we still have like about 21 minutes. Steve, why don't you go? Well, just don't go into a 40-issue run about everything. So,
no,
Steve,
I'll only do a 36-issue run. So.
Steve, what's your classic Batman book you want to talk about?
So again, I played very loose with the idea of classic here. So for me, classic was because I'm not a huge Batman reader. I like Bat Family. I like the idea of Gotham. Gotham as a character to me is very fun and important, and I enjoy it. I enjoy the lore, the history, the connections between everything. Very, Dynasty plus. But anyway, my choice for the classic is the series Gotham Academy. And Gotham Academy started as a New 52 book. It was one of the last of the New 52 books to come out back in 2014. And it had a second series in 2016 that was kind of part of more of the Rebirth era, as well as a crossover miniseries with Lumberjanes, which I don't think is canon necessarily, but it was pretty fun anyway. But it basically really focuses on the legacy of Batman, Bat Family, like the families that led to Batman, as well as the formation of Gotham, and how all of that is interconnected. And it did it through a prep school. And the main character, Olive, whose mother is unfortunately Calamity, who's been put away in Arkham, but there's also a long history of where Olive fits in the history of Gotham and who she is and who her family is. There's also Maps, who's an amazing character who is, Bill just let me know, is actually coming back and is being featured. Is back. Has been featured in backups for, I think it was a detective?
Nope. Batman.
Which is awesome because I love Maps. But it also features, it features Damian Wayne occasionally. It features Batman here and there. It features other villains like Killer Croc, as well as the Cobblepot family, of which the Penguin is part of. But it's just a really interesting, great, fun, accessible way of discovering the history of Gotham and the history of these families that are so interconnected with Batman, and the Wayne families, but also the villains themselves. Where the name Arkham comes from, where the Cobblepot fortune disappeared to. Who are all these people? And it does it in a fun way that's engaging and exciting. And I really love the stories. And of course, the writers on it, Becky Cloonan, Brendan Fletcher, they did such an amazing job in pulling in all this lore and making it just fun and accessible for readers that may not have known too much, because there's a lot more to Batman than just Batman. There's Gotham and everybody who's in it. So that was my pick for classic.
All right, cool. Over to Caleb. What's your classic pick? Oh.
Unmuting helps. Yep. Sorry. My classic pick, it is a classic, but it's in color. So that's going to be fun. So it's in a lot of colors specifically. And I've got some kind of cool toys that go along with it that I was going to show off. And it is, as Steve's showing us right now, it is Detective 241, which, because I don't have $2,000 laying around, I don't have the issue. But what I do have is the 80-page giant that is Batman number 182, which features a reprint of it. So you see that, am I covering up? Yeah, I'm covering it up. Where he's in that famous punching pose. But led to Rainbow Batman pop figures. And it also, not only that, but the really, really cool thing, and one of my pride and joys, is the actual
Oh, I
action
love that. I love
collection.
that.
Beautiful.
So, this is one of my favorite stories on Batman, because, like, part and parcel, it tells you really who Batman is and the things that he will do for the people around him. It's an old school story. It's fun. It's full of that bang pow punk, like zonkiness of the 1957 era. I absolutely adored it. It is. I'm assuming that it is written by Bob Kane, but it's actually penciled by Joe Certa, who did the pencils in that. So it's really fun. So the story in a nutshell, one day Robin is doing, kind of like being Dick Grayson and just walking around as a young boy. And he sees some guys doing a mugging and it's bad. And he's like, oh, I got to go change and stop it because I'm a superhero. Bum, ba, bum. It's being the boy wonder. It's awesome. But he can't, like, before he can get there, they see these guys who are stealing this, like, cutting edge technology, a portable video camera, like, elbow this little girl into traffic. And so, being a superhero, Dick Grayson jumps out and saves her from getting hit by a car. But he hurts his arm. He gets a boo-boo in the process, and it's really sad. And it doesn't break his arm, but it's like he sprained something. It's going to be out of commission for a little bit. So he's got like this dead arm just kind of dangling, not doing a whole lot. And so that's going to be a damper on his week, because now they've got to figure out why these dastardly dudes wanted to steal this video camera, right? Like, he's got to go let Batman know. So he rushes off to his humble haven, the Batcave, to tell his boss slash mentor slash, I don't know what he would call it, dad, who is Batman. Although they don't really like that. He's a ward of Batman at this point. They actually use that term, interestingly enough, what's going on. And so they don't know what's happening, but also Robin is the only person who's seen these villains' faces, right? So he's got to be able to recognize them. Batman devises a plan, but it doesn't tell anybody about his plan. So they start going to all these public appearances where the news might be, right? And he gets in public in the daytime. This is not super wet, moister than an oyster, never sunshines in Gotham. This is Gotham in the daytime. Like, it's bright, shiny, and, not the little Zoloft bubble popping everywhere. And so he gets out there, but he makes a public appearance, which is not something Batman does. But he's wearing an orange outfit. Like, somehow he very quickly put together this day glow orange bat suit instead of the gray and the purple tights, the dark suit. And everybody's confused. And he's like, well, what are you doing? And he doesn't explain anything. He just goes about his business. And, Dick's looking around, doesn't see the bad guys. They go do something else. A little bit later, there's another event that they go to, and Batman pops out in a green suit. Dick doesn't see anything. They don't find their bad guys. They don't find their camera. They're still nothing. Go to another one where there's really famous, Hollywood starlets getting off the plane, and Batman pops out in this gold, just gleaming suit, takes the attention off her, and she gets upset about it because this was her moment. She's supposed to be walking down the tarmac, and everybody's going to be flashing pictures of her, but here's this douchebag in his gold suit taking all the cameras, attention. They don't find their bad guys. And this goes on and on. They go to a sharpshooting event where Batman pops out in this, like, Target bat suit. And everything's fine and hunky-dory until something hits Batman in the chest. He gets shot, gets knocked down, and at this sharpshooting event. And they realize that it came from one of the high-rises. And they run up there real quick to check things out, and they can't find anybody. They've been escaped, but they know at least now that they've got their attention, right? And also, I'll point out that even in 1957, and I wish I had brought this up to the guy at the comic book shop, but they were discussing things rooted in realism, like how Batman can get shot and not be okay. He says he's wearing a steel plate. So even in 1957, they were contending with this notion, this aspect of realism and separating yourself from from the fantasy of it all, which I thought was very interesting just because of what happened today. But they go on and about it, and eventually they haven't had any luck, but they're at their end's rope, and they go to this big feature that's happening in the world, and there's these diamonds on display, these gemstones, and they're pretty sure this is a target, right? Batman comes out in a rainbow bat suit, and everybody's just aghast. But at this time, Dick notices one of the bad guys, and one of the bad, like they jump into action. It's 1957, so they figure out who is who. They pop in, they rescue, they save the day, and what you find out is the whole reason that Batman was wearing these outfits, 100% because he didn't want folks to realize that Robin's arm was hurt, because they would realize that, oh, this boy can get hurt, and they would make him a target. They also might realize that he's Dick Grayson, right? But he didn't. He wanted to take the attention off of all of them, which is very simple and should be straightforward, but it's also ingenious. Some of Bruce's critical thinking skills. I adore this comic not only because of how fun it is, but there's also one line where the villain in this, the villains are all gathered together and they're talking about Batman being in his rainbow suit, doing all of these rainbow things, and the villain says, if Batman doesn't catch on to our scheme, because he's responding, he worries me with those queer costumes of his. Cracks me up, considering the symbol that it is. It's just super fun. All the ephemera is super fun. It's lighthearted. It speaks to the care that Batman has in a really simple way. It's the epitome of a classic to me. And so when Bill said classic, I thought about this instantly. And again, 80-page giant. You can get this for like $20, a rough copy. This one's a little bit nicer, so it cost me a little bit more. It's fun stuff. It's got some other stories from the era. Check it out. Get Rainbow Batman toys. Be like me.
Steve, I'm going to ask you to get your toy so we can at least get a picture of the three of us holding ours
sure.
when you have an opportunity. Okay, so the my classic went over. Not yet. We'll do that at the end. My classic.
I got it.
That's nice. My classic book ties into the 1989 film in a sense, in that this came out contemporaneously with that film. There were a couple of other books I was exploring again today, and some of them haven't held up as well as I thought they would, but this is one book that I think does. And it's not, given the stature of something like a Dark Knight Returns or a Year One, but was a very important bit of his history. And this is Batman: A Lonely Place of Dying. It's been reprinted many, many times, but this was the original trade paperback at a whopping $3.95, if you can believe it, as the price for a 5-issue reprint. And what happens in Lonely Place of Dying is we have the introduction to the Batman storyline of Tim Drake. But what precedes that and what preceded stuff in the Batman comics was some tragedy. About a year before, the second Robin, Jason Todd, was murdered by the Joker. And since then, both Dick Grayson and this inquisitive 12-year-old, who seemingly comes out of nowhere, Tim Drake, are very concerned about that because they think he's losing the plot. He's becoming more violent. He's becoming more sloppy. And Tim knows that the reason behind this is he needs a Robin. And Tim's a real bright kid, and he actually figured out who Batman and Nightwing, previous Robin, were Dick Grayson, through body language and videotape, and the way that it is presented in the comic is very believable. Now, we said about Batman's extended family. We have here Nightwing. We have the presence of Jason Todd, even though at this point he was dead, but his presence factors into the overall storyline. We have the introduction of Tim Drake. We have Alfred being very Alfred, especially with Tim Drake. And this was told over 5 issues. 3 of those issues were Batman issues, and 2 of them were New Titans issues. And the storyline is actually co-plotted by Marv Wolfman and George Perez, tying back to some of our early conversations with George Perez. The art is George Perez on the Titans issues, with layouts with Tom Grummett taking care of the finishes, and the Batman issues by the late great Jim Aparo. And especially with the Titans issues, how the Titans fit into this storyline through Dick, and some of them know actually who Bruce is because of the closeness to Dick and the circumstances. Very interesting how they address that. But it's nice because so few stories of Batman's canon are about rebirth, and this is one of them. It just doesn't factor in too much. And I think at the core, it's because it's a character that's based on loss. The whole instigation for the whole instigation for his narrative is the loss of his parents. And when you do have an injection here, and I think that's why Nightwing was Dick Grayson Robin was such an appealing character, is one of my favorite characters, unlike Batman. As we've discussed before. That the introduction of Tim Drake, brings hope to this world that usually that's four letters in a word that doesn't usually factor in, and it was a nice series at a good time too. 1989. Since we had kind of the grim and gritty Batman in Overdrive, as amazing as Dark Knight and Year One, Year Two for that matter. As amazing as those stories are, it was nice to see Bruce have a good day, and certainly the introduction to Tim Drake to the storyline was that. So that's a classic book. It's been reprinted many times. There's many different versions where you can get these 5 issues, but that's my classic pick: Batman: A Lonely Place of Dying. Okay, it's all right. So then we're going to talk about something a bit more current. So, Steve, what do you have what do you have for that in relation to the Batman world?
Well, I was trying to go through our archives to see if we actually did talk about this. I couldn't find it, but I think
I did talk about it.
Yeah,
I talked about it.
I want to say you did.
Yeah.
But Shadow of the Batgirl. I absolutely love this. This came out in 2020, so it's about 2 years old. Written by Sarah Kuhn with art by Nicole Goh. It's just really fun. It focuses on Cassandra Cain, but a type of Cassandra Cain from her perspective that I don't think we've had the benefit of seeing as much.
I am going to amend my statement here. It was not this book. It was the young adult book that was based around Barbara Gordon that I discussed.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I know that was Oracle Code.
You were not wrong.
Yeah.
Yep. I
think you might have been thinking the Oracle Code, yeah. But this was Shadow of the Batgirl. It's her trying to survive, on the streets alone. She's escaped from her father and is now in the streets of Gotham trying to sort of make a life and meet people, but she's also very, very closed off. And I think it's a really good depiction of Cassandra Cain in a way that makes her seem very much like a Batman family character. Trauma in childhood, massive amounts of martial arts training, so of course she can fight. But it's Batgirl herself, it's Barbara Gordon, who becomes the mentor here for Cassandra Cain, and sort of ushers her into being the new Batgirl. Really great book. I'm not sure if they're going to do any more follow-ups, but I really hope they do. Really good. It's one of the DC young adult imprint books. Definitely do recommend it as a contemporary Bat book, and I think it's a great story that really resonates with a lot of people who may not know the character too well.
Awesome. Over to Caleb. Caleb, what's a recent Batman pick for you?
So super contemporary. It just wrapped up. It is a 3-issue series written by one of my favorite contemporary comics creators now and probably forevermore, Jeff Lemire, and his often and longtime partner Dustin Nguyen. They wrote this Robin and Batman story, which I have issues 2 and 3. I don't have a physical copy of number 1. I've got to get my hands on it.
But the thing is, I think we have different covers.
I think so. Yeah, I've got.
Yeah, so that's your 2.
This is 2 and 3.
These are my 2 and 3s.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, like I had to. I'm a whore for watercolor, so I had to pick these up just because they're gorgeous. But the reason I wanted to showcase these, number one, it's a great story. It's I think Lemire really gets the motivations of these characters a lot. If you like Killer Croc is great in this. But the reason I wanted to highlight this specifically is because this is another great example of that Alfred Batman relationship that I think readers might not be used to, and it's used in a really cool way. So in this one, you have, it's right when it's an Elseworlds tale, quote unquote, kind of, but not really. But it's right when Robin is just getting his feet under him, right? Like he's just becoming a hero. He's still very much a sidekick, but he's Batman's given him enough of his leash that he can do things, and he's trying to buck the system. But Bruce in this version is trying to turn Robin into a child soldier, and it's very disturbing. Like if it doesn't disturb you, you need a soul check, because it's very disturbing. And Alfred loses his shit on him. Like Alfred just basically says, "Hey, you're a terrible human being. I didn't raise you to be this way. Like, what is wrong with you? Like, what you're doing is immoral. Like to a point." And I love it because you see how Alfred often is. He is the morality check for Bruce. And this is done to an extent that it should be grating, like it should jar you. And I like, even for some of my co-hosts on my other show, they didn't like this version because they're like, "No, this isn't my Alfred. This isn't their relationship." And I was like, "Well, it's not supposed to be." But it's gorgeous watercolors by Dustin Nguyen. So like some of the most emotive pages that you'll ever see. Again, Jeff Lemire knows these characters and just understands what makes them tick and writes them really well. Another prime example of how Jeff Lemire can just write anything. He can just do everything in comics. He's brilliant. So yeah, Robin and Batman, again, 3-part series, probably will be a hardcover, well worth it. Someday I hope to have one of those jobs that gives you a decent paycheck, and I will own a page from this because I need some Dustin Nguyen in my life, and it might as well be this. So yeah, go check. And also, like, before I get done, I always didn't want to correct you, but earlier you said that it was the Joker who killed the second Robin, and it was actually just a bunch of fans with phones.
It was a bunch of cynical Gen Xers. That's what it was. It was Gen X killed Jason Todd.
Mm-hmm. You put that on the shirt. Okay.
I want a T-shirt that said Gen X killed Jason Todd.
Gen X killed Jason Todd.
We can put the lyrics from the Nirvana song from the new movie on the back of it. It'll be great.
At one of the early comic book conventions after I started getting back into fandom, it was one of the Philly Wizard World shirts, and this guy had a shirt that said Gwen Stacy was pure. And it was a beautifully designed shirt, and I think we should get Gen X killed Jason Todd. I would love that. Yeah. Okay. For my book, and again, this is tying into Batman's relationship with other heroes and other denizens of his family. A book that's almost a year old at this point is Batman Urban Legends. Yeah. And it's interesting because this book came about by accident. There were way too many Batman miniseries or Batman-related miniseries that were solicited, and they decided to combine some of them into what effectively is a prestige format book as a monthly. So in the pages of Urban Legends, we've had things along the lines of the reintroduction of the Wildcats characters with a very lengthy arc. I couldn't think of the word arc, relating to Grifter and his relationship to Luke Fox and where they stand right now. Yep.
They announced a new action figure for today.
I know you want it.
Really?
Yeah. You want it. We've seen we've seen Tim Drake come out as bisexual in the pages of this book of Urban Legends, and what we have
just like that.
So this is the almost most recent issue. Issue 12 is out. I don't have it yet because that's in my next box, but this does have the beginnings of 2 6-issue storylines. One is Batman and Zatanna, as depicted on the character, as depicted on the cover, and you had mentioned Paul Dini before, and Paul Dini is responsible in the animated series because DC let them use so few characters from the DCU. Zatanna was one that was open, and so there are certain versions of Batman with Zatanna Zatara where they have had a relationship in the past, and this is very much along those lines. They are operating on their own, and they disappear, and Superman notices that this happens about once a year, that Batman and Zatanna disappear, and they act all weird when they do come back, and they're cold and distant to one another, and we're going to find out why that is in this story. But most importantly, in this particular issue, this has the first of 6 stories involving, and this is art by Carl Mostert. The writer is a big favorite of ours, Mr. Mark Russell. And I'm trying to get a good page here. But we have another storyline, a new origin. Yeah, again, since the name of the book is Urban Legends, we don't know if this is necessarily continuity or not. It's fluid continuity. Just deal with it. We have Ace the Bat Hound in a story. And I got to tell you, some of my favorite comic book stories, two that immediately come to mind. Johnny Quest number 13, which is a story of Bandit. Johnny Quest's dog gets kidnapped by a pre-Michael Vick Pitbull ring. And we've joked before about comics that made me cry twice. That was even the name of our episode. There is a sequence in that book where the perspective switches from Bandit to a dog that is dying from his injuries, and he is remembering what life was like as a backyard pet. That will break your heart, and if it doesn't, you don't have one. Okay, plain and simple. I love stories about our canine friends, but they also make me cry like crazy. I know we're headed into dangerous territory with this from an emotional standpoint, but I'm a sucker for all things Ace the Bat Hound, so that's a current book that I would recommend, Batman Urban Legends. And if Ace doesn't connect with you, Zatanna might. You have options. Another interesting thing here is we have the introduction of the new introduced right at the end by our friend, our favorite Jeff Lemire, Kid Eternity. The new version of Kid Eternity is with a new solo run. So there might be something in there for you. So that's my recommendation. The Prestige Format series, Batman Urban Legends. Okay, gentlemen, can we just get a very quick picture of the three of us each holding our Rainbow Pride Batmans? Steve, you're glary. That's good. That's good. All right, good. I'm very happy we have that.
Cool.
Okay, we're going to wrap this episode up, and when we wrap an episode of the Comic Book Bears podcast up, we do so with a segment we call the Woofs of the Week segment. And the bear community, if you find a fellow attractive, you woof at him, or grr, or rar, there's variations. But we do something similar here where we woof or grr or rar at something that may be a film, but it may be a comic book, maybe a TV program, maybe a charitable initiative, anything under the sun that we think you, fair listener or viewer, may be interested in sampling. I will start, as I always do, with Steve. Steve, what is your Woof of the Week?
Well, I've been going back and forth on what would be my Woof of the Week, and I think I'm going to save what I originally was going to pick for a time that we can actually, I think, delve a little bit more into it. Bill, I talked to you about this one last week, and I'm thinking, maybe we can save it for an episode when we talk about TV. But I will bring up another TV show that is non-comic book related, and this one is very weird and quirky and silly, and it's called Shining Vale. It is currently, I think, airing on Starz on Sunday nights. It has Courtney Cox and Greg Kinnear. Courtney Cox is a writer with writer's block, and she and her husband moved to this new house in Connecticut that's nice and creepy, and happens to be haunted by the ghost, or possibly demon ghost, of Mira Sorvino, a 50s housewife who's also saucy and crazy and possibly murderous. It's fun, it's funny, it's goofy, it's weird, it's Courtney Cox freaking out for, 29 minutes of screen time. So yeah, I recommend it if you like any of that.
Okay.
There you go. Shining Veil.
Over to Caleb. Caleb, what is your wolf of the week?
So my wolf of the week is going to continue the theme of Batman for the show, and I just wanted to make a real quick wolf to essentially some of my quick picks, and you can consider this a short list of recommendations of Batman stories that I really enjoy. Starting off, Batman R.I.P., which I really enjoyed, Grant Morrison and Tony Daniel. It's a fun story. Check it out if you haven't read it. Of course, the great Dark Knight is must be read. One of my favorite series, and actually something I thought that they planted some real good seeds for and could have gone with as opposed to the Riddler in this, but it's Batman Hush. Phenomenal series. I absolutely adore it. Check that out. One that not many, it doesn't get a ton of love, so I don't know if people really enjoyed it or not, but I really enjoyed Batman Incorporated. I thought it was really fun. Art by Yannick Paquette, Chris Burnham, folks. I really enjoyed it. And then last but not least, and I hope this makes Bill smile till his face hurts, it is a Batman book. It features the Bat family, but not the Bat family in the sense of Robins, not the Bat family in the sense of Batwoman, Bat family in the sense of his arguably brother and sister, Cal and Diana, but it's Matt Wagner's Trinity. This is one of my favorite Batman stories of all time. This to me is the Bat family. It's part and parcel of Batman's family. Those are the siblings that he never had. Look, I think we all adore Matt Wagner's artwork. We can't be friends if we don't, but it's gorgeous. One of my favorite stories featuring Batman. Not technically a Bat story, I know, sue me, but
well, there's Batman and his Ra's al Ghul all through it, so that's pretty Batman of me,
right?
Yeah. All right. For my wolf of the week, Steve, I am also going with a TV series. And the TV series I am going with is Reno 911 Defunded, which is the name of the current season. This is their second season as formerly a Quibi, now a Roku original series. They have reverted from the 7-minute format to a 21-minute format. I was somebody who just did not enjoy the film that they recently did, Reno 911, The Hunt for QAnon. Just didn't work. This is their back firing on full engines. And let me tell you, there's one episode that is focused around Jones where he does a one-man show for Juneteenth. The laughs happened. Let's put it that way. The laughs happened. I also love with this particular new season that all 7 of the original cast members now have executive producer credit. On top of that, though, you have the cast members from all the seasons. So you do have Birdsong and Ian Roberts and Joe Trulio. So everybody's there. Everybody contributes. Very happy to see that. Very happy to see a return to form after something that I didn't dig too much. So that is my wolf of the week, Reno 911 Defund. All right, we're wrapping this one up for good. Again, we are the Comic Book Bears podcast. You can find us on the Twitter and the Tumblr and the Instagram as Comic Book Bears. You can find us on the Facebook as Comic Book Bears Podcast. If you want to write to us, please do so by sending an email to comicbookbears@gmail.com. If you want to listen to us, please do so by downloading us through Apple Podcasts, listening to us through Stitcher Radio, or many of the other podcatching platforms. And if you are watching this in YouTube, thank you very much. If you joined us for the live stream, thank you very much. Please like and subscribe on the YouTube channel. We would greatly appreciate that. So until next time, I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Steve Morey.
And I'm not Paul Dano.
You're going to hear a wolf and an explosion. We'll be back with you real soon. Same bat time, same bat channel. I've only waited like 45 years to say that. Take care, everyone.
Wolf.